The colony world of 442b was burning. Red fire filled the sky as alien ships dropped bombs on the settlements where humans had worked to build a new home. Commander Hayes ran through the burning streets with his rifle ready. Around him, people screamed. Mothers grabbed their children. Families tried to run toward the evacuation ships. Was supposed to get as many people off the planet as possible. Those were his orders. Load the transports and leave. Do not stay behind. Do not risk the mission. But orders were hard to follow when everything around you was dying. An explosion threw to the ground. His ears rang. Smoke filled his lungs. When he got back to his feet, he saw a small shape moving through the wreckage. It was a child, a girl in a blue jacket, no more than 7 years old. She was calling out for someone. Her voice was lost in the noise of falling buildings and screaming people. Ran to her without thinking. His training told him to ignore the child, get to the ships, complete the mission. Leave no one behind became a cruel joke when there were too many to save. The girl saw him and ran toward him. Her name was Maya. She told him her parents were in the settlement hospital. They had not made it out. Now she was alone in a world that was ending. Picked her up and held her tight. He started running toward the evacuation zone, but the path was blocked. An alien fighter ship had crashed between him and the spaceport. The flames were too hot. The explosion was still happening. There was no way through. Turned and ran the other way. He knew a bunker, an old emergency shelter built into the rock below the colony. It was half a kilometer away, but they could make it. They had to make it. Maya did not cry. That surprised him. She held on to his neck and whispered something, but he could not hear her over the noise. They ran down into the earth, down metal stairs that shook with each explosion above them. The door was heavy and had to use all his strength to push it closed behind them. Inside, the bunker was quiet. Dim lights powered by an ancient battery system gave them just enough light to see. The walls trembled with each explosion far above them, but down here they were safe, at least for now. Maya climbed off and sat down on a metal bench. She stared at nothing. Shock had taken over, sat next to her, and tried to think. His military uniform was torn. He had a cut on his shoulder that was bleeding. His radio was broken, smashed when the first explosion threw him down. 30 minutes passed, maybe an hour. The explosions became less frequent. The shaking stopped. Above them, the alien ships were probably destroying everything. The colony was lost. The evacuation ships were gone or destroyed, and the child were alone in an underground bunker, waiting to be found by an enemy that would show them no mercy. Maya finally spoke. Her voice was quiet and small. She asked a question that changed everything. Why did you not leave me behind like everyone else did? Did not have a good answer. He was a soldier. Soldiers followed orders. Soldiers did not save random children when the mission required them to evacuate the important people first. But he had saved her. He had chosen a small girl he did not know over following orders. I did not want you to be alone, he said simply. Maya nodded like she understood something he did not say out loud. She asked him another question. What is your name? Hayes, he said. Are you my guardian now? She asked. Thought about this? In the dark bunker, with explosions still rumbling somewhere above them, he decided to tell her something true. Yes, I am your guardian now. Maya seemed to accept this. She looked at and asked what he would do to keep her safe. Thought of a story his grandfather had told him years ago, back when he was young and believed stories could explain the world. He told Maya about honey badgers, animals from Earth, small but fierce. They did not care if their enemies were bigger or stronger. They did not know when to give up. They fought with everything they had. They protected their families. Nothing could break their loyalty. I will be like a honey badger told her. I will not give up. I will keep you safe. No matter what happens, I will not leave you. Maya moved closer too. She rested her head on his shoulder. In the darkness of the bunker, with the world burning above them, they waited. Hours passed, tried to think of a plan, but his mind was stuck. They were trapped. The colony was falling. Rescue seemed impossible. Then something strange happened. Maya said she could hear something, asked her what she meant. She said there was a sound, something only she could hear. It was a humming sound like music, but no one else was making it. Felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard stories about rare humans, people with unusual abilities, people whose brains worked differently. He had never believed the stories until now. He asked Maya if she could describe the sound more. She told him it was coming from somewhere above them, through the metal and rock. It was a pattern, a rhythm. something the alien ships were doing. Realized she was hearing the alien communication frequencies. Her young ears could detect sounds that adult humans could not. She could hear the aliens talking to each other through their technology. This small, 7-year-old girl in a blue jacket had just become humanity's most valuable 3 days passed in the bunker, rationed the food and water they found in the emergency supplies. He listened for sounds above, but the world had gone quiet. The battle was over. 442B had fallen. On the 4th day, made a decision. Staying in the bunker would only delay their death. The aliens would eventually find them. They would search every building, every cave, every hole in the ground until they found all the humans they could capture, had heard the stories. The Zephyr Collective did not kill humans immediately. They kept them. They studied them. They used them for things that made soldiers turn away and refuse to speak about what they had seen. That would not happen to Maya. Swore it to himself and to the honey badger story he had told her. He found a way out through the old maintenance tunnels. The bunker was connected to the spaceport by underground passages that had been built decades ago. Most of them were collapsed or blocked, but found one that still worked. He carried Maya through the darkness for hours. She did not complain. She did not cry. She was tough in the way that only children who had lost everything could be tough. They emerged near the old transport bay. The evacuation ships were gone, but there was one small vessel still there. A mining shuttle, old and barely maintained, but it had engines and fuel. Knew how to fly. He had trained on ships like this years ago before he became a commander. He strapped Maya into the navigator's seat and started the engines. The moment the ship lifted off, alarms screamed through the spaceport. The Zephyr Collective had seen them. Weapon fire lit up the sky, but was already pushing the ship towards space. The old shuttle was faster than it looked. They broke through the atmosphere and jumped to hyperspace before the alien ships could close on them. For the first time since Maya had asked him why he did not leave her behind, let himself breathe. But peace did not last. The Zephyr Collective was following them. Across 3 star systems, the alien Armada hunted the small human ship. They destroyed colonies. They burned stations. They killed tens of thousands of humans just to find one child and her guardian. Jumped from system to system, always staying ahead of the enemy, but never far enough ahead. The war was coming. It was following them like a predator follows prey. And slowly, as the days became weeks and the weeks became months, understood something terrible. The Zephyr Collective was not just hunting them randomly. They were hunting with purpose. They knew what they wanted. They wanted Maya. During those long months in the void of space, taught Maya things a 7-year-old should not have to know. He taught her how to read star charts, how to identify weapons signatures on long-range scanners, how to survive in a ship with failing systems, how to be ready to run always. Maya taught him something in return. She taught him to trust what he could not explain. One night when they were hiding behind an asteroid in the system, Maya placed her hand on the scanner controls. She closed her eyes and hummed. The frequency came from deep in her chest, something no training could create, something only this child could do. She said, "The aliens are not looking for me because I can hear them. They are looking for me because I can wake something up, something old, something their ships are afraid of." Did not understand, but he had learned to listen to Maya. He asked her to explain more. Maya told him that every time the aliens used their communication system, she heard something else hidden beneath the noise, like an echo from very far away, like something sleeping and dreaming in the dark. She said the sound came from Earth, from the places humans built long ago, before the Zephyr Collective even knew humanity existed. Felt ice in his chest. He had served in the military for 20 years, but no one had ever told him that humanity had ancient weapons. No one had told him that the first space explorers had left behind a defense network. But now, hearing Maya speak with such certainty, he believed it was true. The aliens knew. Somehow they had learned about it, and they knew that Maya's ability to hear the aliens' frequency was also the key to waking up whatever was sleeping on Earth. Plotted a course toward home. The journey would take them deep into enemy territory. They would have to pass through 3 occupied systems. They would have to hide from patrol ships and scanning stations. The old shuttle was not built for this. It was not built to survive. But was a honey badger now, and honey badgers did not care about impossible odds. He taught Maya the old songs that sailors had sung centuries ago on Earth. Songs about never giving up, about fighting through storms, about coming home no matter how far you traveled. Maya learned the songs quickly. She sang them as flew the shuttle through fields of asteroids and around burning planets. Her voice filled the small ship with something other than fear. One time, when 3 Zephyr Collective patrol ships found them, was ready to fight to the end. He had loaded the weapons. He had told Maya to go to the safe room. He was preparing to die. But Maya would not let him. She climbed back into the navigator's seat. She placed her hands on the controls and she sang, not the sailor songs, something else, something that came from the ancient frequency she could hear. She sang to the alien ships. She sang the frequency of the defense network sleeping on Earth. The patrol ships stopped firing. Their scanners went wild. Their communication systems screamed with feedback. They turned away and fled as if they had encountered something that terrified them. Looked at his guardian charge, this small girl in the fatting blue jacket, and understood the truth. Maya was not just valuable because of what she could wake up. She was valuable because the aliens were afraid of what she represented. Humanity was waking up, and the galaxy was about to learn why the Zephyr Collective should never have come to Earth. The derelict station orbited Saturn like a ghost ship from another era. It was massive, larger than any space station had ever seen. The metal hull was worn. Solar panels hung broken and twisted from the frame. No lights burned inside. No signals came from the communications array. Flew the shuttle carefully toward the docking bay. The old mining shuttle shook as they approached. Alarms warned him about radiation and structural damage, but the airlock was still functional. They docked successfully. The station had been built 53 years ago. Knew this because his grandfather had told him stories about the early space explorers, the first humans to leave the solar system, the ones who had built the original colonies and the first defense networks. Then suddenly those explorers had disappeared. The government said they had failed. Their missions had ended. Their stations had been abandoned. But was beginning to understand that the government had lied. This station was not abandoned. It had been waiting. Maya moved through the corridors of the station carefully. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. Emergency lighting activated as they walked, powered by systems that should have failed decades ago. The station was old, but it was alive in some way. Someone had maintained it. Someone had kept it running. They found the command center on the upper level. And there, sitting in a captain's chair and monitoring old-fashioned screens, was an old man. He was ancient, probably in his 90s. His hair was white. His skin hung loose on his bones, but his eyes were sharp and bright. He had been waiting for them. He had known they would come. His name was Doctor. He had been one of the first space explorers, part of the original mission to establish human presence in the solar system. He had stayed behind when everyone else was called back. He had stayed to keep the secret alive. He had stayed to wait for a child with Maya's gift. "Welcome home," Doctor said. "I have been waiting a very long time for this moment." Kept his hand on his weapon. He did not know if he could trust this old man, but Maya walked forward without fear. She could hear something in the old doctor's voice, something honest, something that meant he was telling the truth. Doctor stood slowly. He explained everything. 50 years ago, humanity's leaders had realized that the universe was not empty. They had detected signals from an advanced alien civilization, the Zephyr Collective. These aliens were exploring the galaxy, conquering worlds, looking for resources and knowledge. Humanity had 2 choices, fight or hide. The leaders had chosen to hide. They had called back all the explorers. They had sealed away the defense network that had been built in secret. And they had told everyone that space exploration was too dangerous, too expensive. It was better to stay on Earth and pretend the universe did not exist. But I could not do that, Doctor said. I knew the Zephyr Collective would eventually find Earth. And when they did, we would need to be ready. So I stayed here. I maintained the old network. I kept it alive and waiting. The defense network asked. Yes, Doctor said. The first explorers built a system of satellites and weapons platforms. They orbit Earth and the Moon. They are armed with technology that was advanced for their time. Not the most powerful weapons, but powerful enough. They were built to protect humanity from threats that were not yet known. But the system needs something to activate it, Doctor continued. It needs a human voice that can speak the activation frequency. A frequency so unique, so precise, that only one human in 10 million could possess it. He looked at Maya. You are that human, he said to her. Your genetics, your brain structure, your ability to hear and produce that frequency makes you the only person on Earth who can wake up the old guardian. The old guardian, Maya repeated. The defense network, Doctor explained. We built it as a protector, a guardian to watch over Earth. It has been sleeping for 50 years. But when the Zephyr Collective arrives at Earth, as they will arrive, that guardian must awaken. And when it does, Doctor said, it will show them that humanity is not helpless. It will show them that we are not an easy conquest. Felt something heavy settle in his chest. He understood what this meant. Maya would have to go into the radiation chamber. She would have to enter the central reactor room where the activation system was located. She would have to sing the frequency and wake the old guardian. And she would probably die from the radiation exposure. Doctor led them through the station. The device was ancient and dangerous. The reactor had been designed for the explorers of 50 years ago. Modern shielding technology did not exist back then. And the more radiation the reactor had absorbed over 50 years, the more dangerous it had become. There was no way to activate it safely. The activation required a human voice, yes, but it required a human voice at point-blank range. Close enough that the frequency could resonate with the receiver. Close enough that the radiation would do terrible damage. Would not allow it. He said there had to be another way. Maybe they could modify the system. Maybe they could create a remote activation. Maybe they could find another child with the same gift. No, Doctor said, there is no other way, and there is no other child. Maya is unique. There will not be another one in this generation. Picked up Maya and held her to his chest. He said he would find another way. He had sworn to protect her. He had promised to be like a honey badger. Honey badgers did not let their young die. But Maya was not afraid. She looked at with eyes that seemed much older than 7 years old. She had already lost her parents. She had already survived an invasion. She had already learned that the world was cruel and unfair. But she had also learned something else she had learned about loyalty, about protecting others, about doing what was right even when it was hard. Let me go in, she said too. Let me wake the guardian. And the honey badger who had sworn to never give up faced a choice that had no good answer. Let the girl he loved die, or let the entire human species fall to the Zephyr Collective. Doctor placed his weathered hand on shoulder. Some choices are too hard to make, he said. But some things are bigger than ourselves. Sometimes protecting one person means protecting millions. Carried Maya to the radiation chamber. He told her stories about honey badgers the whole way. He told her about their courage, about how they never backed down, about how they were the fiercest fighters in all the kingdoms of Earth. The frequency rolled through the old reactor system like thunder crossing the sky. It was not a sound that normal human ears could hear, but every machine in the station responded to it. Lights blazed to life. Computers that had been dormant for 50 years suddenly powered up. The ancient defense network began to wake. Maya collapsed after the frequency stopped. The radiation had burned her skin. Her hair was falling out. Her body was shutting down from exposure to levels of radiation that no 7-year-old should ever experience. But the device had received the signal. The old guardian had heard her voice. Carried her from the chamber. Doctor had a medical bay, old but still functional. He placed Maya on a bed and did what he could with ancient medicines and damaged medical equipment. Her eyes were open, but she was not fully awake. The radiation had taken something from her, some piece of her that could never be returned. But she was alive. In the control room, screens lit up across every wall. Doctor watched as the activation sequence spread across the solar system at the speed of light. Satellites began receiving the signal. Weapons platforms powered up. Around Earth and the Moon, a network of defense systems that had been sleeping for 50 years began to open their eyes. The Zephyr Collective fleet was still in deep space, 3 days away from Earth. They did not know what was happening. They did not know that the sleeping guardian was waking. Stood in the control room and watched the screens. He saw Earth through the various cameras and sensors the network had installed. His home world. The place where all humans had come from. The place he had sworn to protect. Doctor placed a communications device in his hand. He said, "You have given humanity a second chance. What they do with that chance is now up to them." But before Earth's government could even react to the sudden activation of the old defense network, the Zephyr Collective arrived. The alien Armada came out of hyperspace like a storm. 17 capital ships, each one larger than any human warship ever built. Hundreds of smaller fighters and support vessels. The Zephyr Collective had come to conquer Earth, and they believed that nothing on the planet could stop them. They had not expected to face the old Guardian. The defense satellites fired first. Red beams of energy lanced out from orbit. The weapons were not the most powerful in the galaxy, but they were accurate and they did not stop. One beam cut through the shield of an alien capital ship. Another struck the engines of a fighter formation, scattering them like birds running from fire. The Zephyr Collective commander was an ancient being named. He had conquered 43 worlds. He had never faced a species that possessed weapons he did not know about. For the first time in his long life, felt something that might have been fear. The battle lasted less than an hour. The old defense network could not defeat the Zephyr Collective Armada, but it could wound them. It could make them bleed. It could show them that humanity was not helpless. The alien ships fought back viciously, trying to destroy the satellites before the network could do more damage. 2 satellite stations were destroyed. 3 weapons platforms fell silent, but for every satellite the aliens destroyed, they lost a ship. The mathematics were terrible for the Zephyr Collective. They could not afford to keep fighting at this rate. But they did not have to fight any longer, because had other plans. In the derelict station was already moving. He had Doctor take over the control systems for the satellites. Then he ran to the shuttle bay. He was going to do something that no military commander would ever approve of. Something insane, something only a honey badger would attempt. He was going to fly directly into the heart of the alien fleet. The old shuttle was fast enough to slip through the fighting, push the engines to their maximum and dove toward the Zephyr Collective's main command ship. The alien vessel was massive, a floating fortress of armor and weapons. It was protected by shields that could stop most projectiles, but did not attack from a distance. He flew directly toward the reactor core, the heart of the ship, the engines that gave it power, the force that made it move through space. Alien fighters tried to intercept him. They fired plasma weapons and energy beams. One shot grazed the shuttle's wing, tearing away metal and sending spinning. But he recovered. He kept flying forward. He had made a promise to protect Maya. He had made a promise to keep fighting. Honey badgers did not stop, no matter how much pain they were in. The shuttle hit the command ship's reactor core at full speed. The impact was catastrophic. The shuttle was destroyed instantly. The reactor was cracked open. Energy poured out like blood from a wound. The command ship's systems went dark. Internal explosions tore through the vessel. In seconds, the alien flagship was dead in space. Ejected from the shuttle at the last possible moment, the escape pod shot free and spun away from the destruction. He could see the command ship tearing itself apart. He could see enemy fighters stopping their attack as their commander died. Then the escape pod's engines kicked in. Was alive. Somehow, against all odds, he had survived. By the time made it back to the derelict station, the remaining Zephyr Collective forces were jumping to hyperspace. Without their commander, without the certainty of easy victory, they had decided to retreat. 17 capital ships had become 8. Hundreds of fighters were gone. The Armada was broken. Humanity had won. Ran to the medical bay where Maya lay sleeping. She was still alive, still breathing. The radiation burns would scar her, but the ancient medical equipment was doing its job. She was recovering. She had sung the frequency that awakened the Guardian, had done the rest. He took her hand and held it gently. He whispered to her sleeping form. "We did it, little one. We survived. The honey badger and his guardian, we won." And in the control room, Doctor watched the last of the alien ships disappear into space. For 50 years, he had maintained the old network. For 50 years, he had waited for a child who could hear the future. And finally, after all that waiting, the old Guardian had done its job. Earth was safe. Humanity had a second chance. And a small girl and her commander had 3 weeks later stood on the bridge of an Earth Defense Fleet ship. He was no longer a fugitive or a rogue commander. He was a hero. The entire world knew his name. The entire galaxy knew what he and Maya had done. But did not feel like a hero. He felt like a guardian who had failed to protect his charge. Maya had recovered from the radiation sickness, but she was not the same child who had boarded the shuttle on 442B. Her hair grew back, but it was white. Her young skin had aged. Her eyes carried knowledge that no 7-year-old should ever carry. The radiation had changed something deep inside her. It had matured her in ways that no human should be matured. Yet she was alive, and that was the only thing that mattered. The Galactic Council had called an emergency session. They had learned about the battle at Earth. They had learned that humanity possessed an ancient defense network. They had learned that the Zephyr Collective, a force that had conquered worlds without serious resistance, had been driven away by a species that the Council had barely acknowledged. The Council was forced to make a decision. Either recognize humanity as a protected species under galactic law and admit that the Zephyr Collective had made a serious mistake in attacking Earth, or continue the war and risk losing more ships and resources. Commander, the surviving leader of the Zephyr Collective, had made his recommendation to the Council. He had suggested, very strongly, that humanity be placed under protected status. He had also suggested that any further attacks on human worlds would result in catastrophic consequences. The Council had agreed, unanimously. Humanity was now a recognized power in the galactic community. Not the strongest, but strong enough that attacking them carried a high price. And it was all because of a man who loved a child too much to follow orders. Earth's government wanted to arrest. He had gone rogue. He had taken resources without permission. He had violated military law, but public opinion made it impossible. Every human on Earth knew his name. Every child knew the story of the honey badger, and the girl with the special gift had become untouchable. Instead of arrest, the government gave him a medal. They called him the greatest soldier who had ever lived. They offered him any position he wanted: commander of the Earth Defense Fleet, director of space operations, a seat on the governing council. Refused it all. He only asked for one thing. He asked for custody of Maya, legal guardianship, the right to raise her and teach her and protect her. The government granted it immediately. Maya recovered in a facility built specifically for her. Scientists and doctors studied her constantly, trying to understand her genetic gift. How did she produce those frequencies? Why could her voice do things that no other human voice could do? Would her children inherit this ability? Would there be more children like her? But Maya was not interested in being studied. She wanted to learn. She wanted to understand the galaxy. She wanted to know everything about the alien species that humans would now have to live alongside. Worked with her teachers. He made sure her education was simple and practical. She did not need to study things that would not help her survive. She needed to learn languages. She needed to understand how alien technology worked. She needed to become fluent in the patterns and frequencies that made up the universe. By the time Maya was 12 years old, she could understand and interpret alien communication systems. By the time she was 15, she was teaching other humans how to translate alien languages. By the time she was 20, Earth's government had created a new position just for her. Maya became humanity's first official, the bridge between humanity and the alien civilizations that were now part of our daily existence. Retired from the military and became her full-time guardian and mentor. They traveled together across the solar system. They visited the colonies that had been rebuilt. They met with the aliens who now maintained embassies on Earth and in human space. Everywhere they went, people recognized them. Children asked for their autographs. Young soldiers saluted with tears in their eyes. Maya signed documents and gave speeches. She became the living symbol of humanity's survival. But what mattered most to both of them was the simple routine they fell into. Every evening, no matter where they were, would sit with Maya. He would tell her stories about honey badgers, about their fierce loyalty, about their refusal to surrender, about how they protected their young with everything they had. And Maya would listen, even though she was no longer young, even though she was now one of the most important people in human civilization. She would listen because these stories were the thread that connected her to the man who had saved her. The man who had chosen her over orders. The man who had loved her when she was completely alone. Years passed, aged. The scars of his sacrifice became visible in his face and his movements. But his eyes stayed sharp. His voice never wavered when he spoke about his guardianship. Maya never married. She never had children of her own. She dedicated her life to building bridges between humanity and the alien species. She traveled to alien worlds. She made peace treaties. She showed the galaxy that humans could be trusted, that humans could be partners, that humans were worth protecting. When finally became too old to travel, Maya brought him back to Earth. She built a house for them in the place where he had grown up. They spent his final years together, talking about the old days, about the bunker on 442B, about the derelict station orbiting Saturn, about the moment when had carried a 7-year-old girl into a radiation chamber and told her to sing. On the night before died, he called Maya to his bed. He took her hand with his ancient, fragile fingers. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you for being so brave. Thank you for singing when I asked you to sing. Thank you for letting me be your guardian." Maya held his hand and cried. Not the tears of a strong, not the tears of the woman who had changed the galaxy, but the tears of a child who had loved the man who saved her. After was gone, Maya traveled the galaxy telling their story. She told other species about honey badgers, about their loyalty, about their refusal to give up, about how a small creature, surrounded by enemies, would fight with everything it had to protect those it loved. The galaxy learned the truth. Humans were like honey badgers. They did not know when to surrender. They protected their young fiercely. They loved with a loyalty that could change worlds. They would fight against impossible odds, and often, impossibly, they would win. And it had all started because one man, on a burning planet, had chosen to save a child instead of following orders. One man who had promised to be a guardian. One man who had kept his promise, even when it cost him everything. That was the loyalty of the honey badger. That was the story of Hayes and Maya. And that was why humanity survived when all the odds said it should have fallen. Me legends that would be told for 1,000 years. He held her hand as she walked into the chamber. And when she began to sing, the frequency that only she could produce, closed his eyes and became a true guardian for the first time in his life. They jumped to hyperspace and raced toward home. Earth was waiting. The old network was waiting, and the honey badger and her guardian were ready to show the universe what loyalty meant. Weapon, she did not know it yet, but she was the key to everything that would come next. Held her hand in the darkness and promised her again, "I will keep you safe. I am your guardian. Like the honey badger, I will never stop fighting for you." Above them, the colony of 442B was being destroyed. Thousands died. The human dream of a second home was burning away. But in the bunker below, a man and a child made a promise to each other. And in the galaxy beyond, a force was coming that did not know humanity had a secret weapon waiting for them. The honey badger's loyalty was about to change the course of human history.